Hey guys, it's me again. I am back with many more videos to come because I have arrived in Africa. By now, I am in Zambia visiting the Victoria Falls, but I came here through Johannesburg. I spent one day in Johannesburg this time, but 4 years ago, I did my internship in South Africa, and I also spent a couple of days in Johannesburg to get to know about the history and the culture, to be able to work with the people a lot better. So in this video, I am going to talk you guys through both the couple of days that I spent previously and all the things that you need to see to get to know everything about the South African history, Nelson Mandela, and also how my journey to Africa was in 2022. Everything that I had to do, how the journey went, all the drama, because the reason why I am actually filming this when I am already in Zambia is because the one day that I did have in Johannesburg was quite crazy and I didn't feel like picking up the camera. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into Johannesburg. On the 8th of March at around 2 p.m. I took a train from Bruges to the airport in Brussels. I was way too early. I couldn't do the check-in online because of a new system that British Airways has. They basically have this app, and first you need to upload your COVID documents and make sure that everything is in order. Then they verify them and you can do your check-in. But the app is not from British Airways itself, and I don't think it's linked very well to the website or anything, because I couldn't do the check-in no matter if the documents were verified or not. So that was annoying, because for a really long night flight you really want to have a comfortable seat. So I got to the airport early, a bit too early, and managed to get window seats for both my flights. First I flew into London, and then I flew to Johannesburg from London Heathrow. London Heathrow is so huge. It's always a bit of a labyrinth. There are so many shops, a lot of shops and products also that we don't have in Europe, which is always nice to browse. I did have a lot of time to do that. And then it was time to board, and I was looking at my boarding pass thinking, why will it take so long to board the plane? Turned out it was an Airbus 380, a double-decker plane, so obviously it had a lot of people on it that all needed to be boarded. I think we had half an hour of extra time before leaving, simply because it took so long. Then I had the night flight, and it was actually quite comfortable because there was no one sitting next to me. I had the window seats, there was a baby in front of us, but it was all good. It only cried when we were going up, but other than that, it was very quiet. Overall, the flight went really well, and in the morning around 10 a.m. we arrived in Johannesburg. Finally, I had been so excited to come back to South Africa. It's really like, I don't know, a happy place. Obviously, there are a couple of documents that you will need to have with you. I already printed out the PLF, the passenger locator form, back at home. I knew I would have 3 flights into South Africa, so I printed out 3. They also handed them out on the plane, but don't count on that. You will also need a PCR test and obviously your international passport. So when I got to Johannesburg, I went to the border check, or to the passport immigration check, and there is a line, and first there's a person in the line that picks up all the PLFs. They don't even look at them twice, but you didn't hear it from me. And then the next person, when you're a bit further down the line, will take your temperature and also look at your PCR test. If it's negative, then further down the line is the actual migration station, and there the officer just puts a stamp in your passport. And for us, most Europeans, I guess, you get to stay for 3 months for free, which is so great. I love South Africa. Make sure to come here if you can. The process was so quick, the line wasn't long at all, and it went so fast. So that was so good. I was picked up at the airport by our guide and also the couple I would be traveling with. I am traveling with a couple which I know through the organization that is sending me across Africa. and it's mainly just to keep the costs lower, to be honest, to share the transfers, sometimes accommodations, etc. So these people had just taken a PCR test because the next day we would be flying into Zambia to visit the falls here. They took the test, picked me up, and then we started our day program. We planned to go to the Nirox sculpture park and also the Sterkfontein Caves. That is something that they wanted to do, and I just joined them. First we arrived to the sculpture park, and the guard at the gate says it's not open, it's only open on the weekends. So okay, that's too bad, because that's what my companions really wanted to see, but we decided to continue on to the caves. We got to the caves, and my companions were like, let's have a coffee first, sit down. So we did, and at that moment they get the results from their PCR tests, and one is positive, which meant that that person wouldn't be able to fly the next day. So we're like, okay, how do we solve this? I had some self-tests with me, and I was like, okay, if this is positive, you're gonna be positive, and there's no need to take another test. But if it's not, if it's negative or inconclusive, we should definitely have another PCR test just in case it's false positive. But anyway, by that time, some friends of the companions I'm with, they had called, South African friends, and they were like, okay, we are at this sculpture park, like in the restaurant. And we're like, thought it was closed. They say, no, you can come to the restaurant and then you can walk in the garden or in the park. So my companions decided that instead of visiting the caves, we would just go to those friends at the sculpture park and spend the day there, just having some food and exploring the park. We did the test and it turned out negative, so we decided that afterwards we would go back to the airport to take another PCR test. This took us 2 hours extra of our day, but in the end it was worth it because the next test was negative, which meant that the next day all 3 of us could fly. We ended the day in Melville, which is a neighborhood in Johannesburg pretty close to the city center. But it's very calm, very hip, a lot of restaurants and bars, and it's where our guest house is located, which is called 84 on 4th. It's a really nice guest house, and usually it does a really good breakfast, but this time around we had breakfast on the corner of the street. It was included, it was a lovely bakery, they had so many nice goods, and it was really good. We also had dinner in the evening, and we just had a pizza, all 3 of us, and just went to bed early to be ready for the next day for the flight. And like I said, last time I was in Johannesburg, I learned a lot about the history and the culture and saw a lot of significant places which had to do with the apartheid history. So that was very interesting, and I'm gonna go through all the places with you now. The first most famous neighborhood, which is actually a giant township, is Soweto. Soweto is a township, so it consists out of houses, but also more like slums, and houses made out of anything the people can find, pretty much. It is a poorer neighborhood. Basically, back in the day, the white people said, we are taking the city. The black people need to go live outside the city altogether, and that is how the townships were created. Soweto is Johannesburg's biggest township, and it's also where you will find a lot of significant places where Mandela lived, and I'm gonna talk you through. One of the first places is obviously the place that Nelson Mandela grew up. He was the leader of the anti-apartheid movement, so he was really fighting for equality in the country and against the segregation of black and white and other laws for different people. So one of the first places you will need to pay a visit is the house that he grew up in. There's a lot to see. I believe there's still some holes from the bullets. It's the house that he grew up with his family, so when he was a kid. You can also see the home of Winnie Mandela. Winnie was his wife, and we could see her house, and the flag of his political party was hanging out. It was special. In Soweto, we also have a kamamma. A kamamma can have a guest house or maybe a cooking workshop, and we visited the kamamma in Soweto to have lunch. So we had a really lovely lunch with her. Really getting to know the South African food and being invited in a lovely welcoming home. So aside from Mandela's house and Winnie Mandela's house, there is also the Hector Pieterson Memorial. This is a memorial and a museum that is dedicated to the first victim of the student rebellion in Soweto in the 1970s. This was a boy of only 12 years old, and he was the first victim to be killed in those protests. Since he was so young, he became one of the faces of the anti-apartheid movement. Not inside of Soweto, but also in one of the neighborhoods of Johannesburg is Liliesleaf Farm. This is a farm that was used by Nelson Mandela and his companions of his political party that were setting up a riot against the apartheid regime. They were hiding out there and planning everything. Eventually they got caught and they were sentenced to life in prison. And one of those prisons I will show you in the video in Cape Town. So this is also a very special place to visit. Just knowing the history of the place, it's really special to walk around there. If you still haven't had enough of Nelson Mandela, there is still the Nelson Mandela Bridge that you can cross into the city. You can see the Chancellor House, which is where he was actually a lawyer. You can go to his estate, which is where he lived when he was the president, which is in the Houghton area. This is a much more beautiful house, a bigger house, obviously. It's more of a villa, and a lot of people put rocks with lots of drawings and stuff in front of that house still. To pay tribute to Mandela. And of course, the one and only museum that you definitely cannot miss when you go to Johannesburg is the Apartheid Museum, to learn everything about the segregation, the history, the politics, and everything that happened with Nelson Mandela, his political party. And it really gives you such a better understanding of everything that happened and everything that is still going on in this world today. Some things that I saw that is not related to apartheid, yes, that is there as well, is of course the sculpture garden, but also we visited a voodoo store, so there were lots of special products to do some kind of rituals. I don't know, I'm not up to speed on the whole voodoo thing. I hope I will be by the time I go to Benin. And also Soccer City Stadium, which was built for the World Championships. So that was in 2010 when South Africa was able to host the World Championship. And we will also see a stadium when we go to Cape Town. So that is it. That is all I have seen personally. Johannesburg is huge, and I bet there is so much more to see and do around it. So if you want to learn more about the history and just want to see a really nice city in general, definitely pay a visit to Johannesburg. At the moment I am in Zambia and I have already seen the falls. I'm going on a very adventurous excursion this afternoon as well. If you want to join me on the rest of my 4 months in Africa, because this is just a start, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification, give it a like so that you don't miss any of the next videos. I am going to Botswana next, hopefully doing a self-drive in Namibia for 2 weeks, and then I'll be spending 2 weeks in Cape Town. I have so many crazy activities planned there. I'm going to go crazy. And I'm also going back to the place where I stayed and did my internship for 3 months the previous time, and it was also a township, and I'm so excited to see everyone again. And then I should be going on to Ghana, Benin, and Central Africa, but everything is planned out now until the end of April, and then for May and June we'll see whatever is possible and how we can best arrange things. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see all of that, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!